There's a story going around today about YouTube, right? And if you have a YouTube channel and you sell advertising, then the taxation department are basically saying, we're going to get you because you're making money. But it also means wider complications here. When there's something that you do that's simply a hobby, or you're selling your own personal possessions, but you keep finding stuff and selling it on Gumtree, when does the tax man start to go, you know what, you're earning an income here, we're going to get you?
So when does it go? So it's important, is it, to work out something that's a hobby as opposed to something that's a business?
That's my understanding. Craig Faulkner will help us out here. He's an accountant and director of Faulkner & Co. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Basil.
When is a hobby and when is it a business?
Well, that's a question that's been around the ATO system for quite some time. The difference is essentially from the ATO perspective when you start to have a profit-making intention and the likelihood of profit. The cynic in me suggests that when you're likely to have taxable income, they want it. If you're likely to have a taxable loss, they don't want you to use that to offset other income. But that's just me being cynical.
Right. And probably where most people say, well, you know, this is never going to make any money. I'm just covering my cost. I like doing up furniture. I like giving people joy. Therefore, I never intended to make money. The same with someone that runs perhaps a YouTube channel. I simply want to share my love or whatever it is, and I need a few dollars to be able to do that, but it's definitely not a money-making venture.
Sure, certainly, and that's the issue. That's the crux of the issue that the ATO are grappling with, and to be honest, the Australian taxpayer ought to be grappling with. When do you classify something as a passion and something that you pursue for pleasure, as opposed to when do you throw in your job as a flight attendant, for instance, and start doing something in a systematic and a process-driven fashion, which then attracts volumes and volumes in particular, volumes of revenue. So that's the crux of the issue. If you do something that you pursue for pleasure, it's quite obvious that's a pleasurable activity. It's not designed on scale, or it's not systemised, or it's not business-like. And I know that's a difficult concept to necessarily get your head around. But it's those sorts of hallmarks that the ATO are looking for: systematic, volume, scale, business-like. If that helps.
Well, kind of, but I'm sure a lot of people will be going, I'm not too sure whether I've crossed the line or not. If you're in doubt, can you get a ruling from the tax office?
Certainly, there are ways to apply for private rulings. I would suggest, though, at first instance, there's a wealth of literature on the Australian Taxation Office website, and certainly most of my colleagues in the accounting profession will be reasonably well versed to make an assessment where there's a little bit of professional experience involved in making that assessment. If you start to think that you're in the zone of where you might be caught under the ATO radar, I think what you need to be conscious of is, first of all, jurisdiction, and jurisdiction essentially is, are you an Australian tax resident, and is it Australian-sourced income or foreign-sourced income if you're an Australian tax resident? So a couple of those sorts of things are important. For instance, if you're selling cupcakes and advertising in the US and you're not an Australian resident, completely out. So those sorts of things are the first stage.
Craig, just before you go, mate, sorry to wind you up, the tax-free threshold, how much are you allowed to earn in normal earning capacity before you have to pay tax? What is it at the moment?
Well, it's a total of $18,000 that you can earn tax-free from all sources of Australian income, or all sources of income if you're an Australian resident.
Okay.
$18,000.
All right. Sometimes the tax department just rattle the cage, don't they? And a few people put their hand up and go, okay, I am running a business here and I need to declare it. And that's really what they're saying, aren't they? They're giving you a warning? Absolutely.
I mean, it comes back to our self-assessment system, and by that it's the onus on the taxpayer to self-assess their income and declare it. There are some wider ramifications here, and I think the ATO are showing that they're onto the online sources of income. The Facebooks and those sorts of things are sort of what they're trying to say, watch out, we're onto this.
We'll get you. All right, Craig, good on you, mate. Nice to talk again. Take care.
No worries. Have a good morning.
Craig Faulkner, their accountant and director of Faulkner & Co.
So if you had a hobby business, would it produce more than $18,000 a year?
Probably not.
No, so why isn't it just a cut-off, $18,000?
Well, hold on, if you earn $50,000, in your job, and then you earn another $18,000,
it takes you into a next bracket. I see what you mean.